Hello and good day. This is segment 2 on December 7th. Torah for the Revoked civil servant. On this segment, I wanted to strictly talk about data. On my GoFundMe stats, it says I have roughly 314, somewhere like that, views. Now, is that significant? Well, when you think and consider other information, it puts things in a little bit different perspective. So think of how natural spread of information transpires. Before the internet, what? Telephone, mouth to mouth, radio, TV. So there were certain dynamics involved. Post internet, the dynamics have changed. But the actual well, let me rephrase that. The methods have changed slightly, but the dynamics pretty much have stayed the same. So think of the optics. As I stand here right now and make this on December 7th, think of the hurdles or gates that this one video goes through. Now, if you do not have a networking background, most of it is seamless. You just see the video and that's it. You really don't understand what is happening behind the scenes, which, to most people, hey, who cares? Obviously, since June and Mark Zuckerberg being brought before Congress, the heat's being turned up. Even really before then, but so in my situation, take my background as far as when I make this video and my history. I work with roughly 4,000 people locally, in addition to, probably 10,000 or more contractors. And if you want to basically do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with respect to the impact and the spread, just here in the Charleston region alone, not to mention New Orleans or Norfolk or San Diego or any of the other locations. So think of that 314 number from that optic view. Okay, that's just one view. As far as the internal dynamics of informational awareness, that becomes key, because that's mappable. Not just for me, for you too. As you're sitting here watching this video, similar to, and it's really no different than watching something via cable TV, how all of that is logged. Okay. So the accountability goes both ways. Historically, it's always been top down. But basically, that shift and that dynamic is not being, I don't think, really taught. It's not being, that leverage of that is not being used wisely in assessing the total picture of anything. So, today of all days, earlier today, President Trump came out with what they call a tweet storm. About the Mueller investigation. Now that is another whole data set that is and will be fascinating to study. Not just in the immediate future, but for decades to come. My opinion. Because of the dynamics behind the scenes that are involved and the accountability of the decision making. I wanted to make this a separate segment today to mainly allow you to focus on that dynamic. Basically, in my case, everything was top down. As far as, let's say, some other recent news examples, there was one in the news with Les Moonves, they're the president of CBS, and how that information flowed top down was being leveraged, but yet also the ramifications from bottom up. The accountability with who wanted to know and who didn't want to know. It becomes key. So when you take the 300 and so views that basically in 2 months, what is resonating on those 300 and so views and what is that actual spread. That's why I gave an earlier update with respect and used this as an example. Yes, this is a few years old, but it still has huge ramifications. When I emailed the Thrift Savings Board, there's a couple of different ways of looking at that. Well, when I email them, I say, hey, move all of your trades from the BATS exchange to the IEX exchange. We're not doing that. Somebody's got to be held accountable. Oh, really? Now, put the shoe on the other foot. Mr. Branton, hey, number one, that's not your authority. Number two, you're playing favorites in the market. However, if they would have talked to me, I said, no, I'm not. I'm using basically like a seesaw. If they're not going to do anything, I'm going to do it all, so you meet in the middle, 50-50. Well, what do you mean by 50-50? All right, 50% of the trades go to BATS and 50% go to the IEX exchange. That was one of the hedges that Goldman Sachs was making, being one of the first ones to even invest in the IEX exchange. So that's why I made that reference as a huge, signals marker. So that is how the optics, or just one way, the optics of how the spread of this GoFundMe campaign can be viewed. When I post to Facebook, I have friends I go to church with. That's there on Facebook. What type of spread does that have? Because there's 17,000 people at Seacoast. So what are the dynamics of a GoFundMe video versus someone that is paying for advertising? And what are those two algorithmic differences? I know it may be kind of deep, explaining it or presenting it to you this way. But now think, on the other hand, all right, how are those same optics in other areas? How is it affecting you? How is it affecting you? Like when you're in the grocery store and you're doing a little smartphone magic, and all of a sudden you get a little advertisement for orange juice. Oh yeah, well, how'd they know I was here? Okay. Wait a second. If they know I'm here, well, I want to tell them more. I want to tell them more than what they're asking for. Well, why does that make a difference? Well, take orange juice. How's orange juice delivered? Trucked? Railed? What is its logistics? 50-50. 50-50. All right. Logistics, half the energy will be fossil, half will be Tesla. 50-50. You'd have someone like me come in and say, no, 100%. Just as leverage. So that's how data can be used. And someone shopping, not understanding, they only want to they only want it to go one way. Okay? But it's both ways because of the stock implication and how it affects your pension. Whew. Now, some people would say, well, Chris, that's a lot of dominoes. Well, that's what I've been paid to do and not paid to do all my life. So I wanted to offer that as a separate segment here. I know we're going almost 15 minutes here. There have been some interesting similar topics via TED on a lot of this. But it's what they're not telling you in those TED Talks. Okay? I mean, do you ever see anybody in a TED Talk say, all right, everybody get out your phones, I want you to do this. All right, hold your hand up. What's your advertiser on your on that web page for you? And then asking somebody else, what's that advertiser on that web page for you? And then asking everybody else in the audience, all right, how many have this versus the other? And seeing what that spread is just within the audience. Just to have an aha moment for the audience members. Oh, okay, I get it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like watching a video of any rock band. You know, and they tell you, all right, get out your little stars. You know, and people turn on their smartphone, they're swaying to the crowd. Those 80,000 people. All right. Well, all those advertisers are collecting data on you. Now, what are you telling the advertiser? And how do you validate what you told them? Same thing in gaming. Same thing in gaming. You know? So, to tie that right back into how this is with me and what has transpired. Okay? There's more than meets the eye. Just about in any action taken like this. Okay? So, this is, ends of the second segment. Just wanted to give you, that meat to consider and to think about. I've got another third topic coming up here. Hopefully you'll want to watch and think about that one also. I know somebody, why are you in your kitchen? Well, I'm not at the kitchen table. But you know how in politics, they talk about kitchen table issues? It's basically a reference back to that. It's a signal back to that. Anyway, hope your day is going great. Thanks for watching this second segment, and I'll have the third one coming up here shortly. Thanks.